Hello, and thank you for joining us on Giving Voice to Depression. I'm Bridget.
And I'm Terry. More than 350 million people worldwide suffer from depression, but you do not have to have it yourself to be affected by it. Its prevalence pretty much guarantees that someone you care about battles its darkness.
This podcast tries to shine some light into that darkness. We're not experts, and we're not therapists. We're sisters and best friends who live with depression and who are committed to encouraging healthy, healing conversations about mental illness.
Season 3 of this podcast is sponsored by the Charles E. Kubly Foundation, which supports efforts to reduce the stigma of mental illness. We are solely responsible for podcast content.
Hi, Terry.
Hello, Bridget.
Today we're doing part 2 of a 2-part series, and I just want to review a little bit of last week because it was such an amazing opportunity to hear both sides of a life-saving story. Mm-hmm. And we had Neil and Johnny, and they're both in England. And at the last episode, Johnny had decided that he was going to join Neil and go to a cafe and warm up and not jump off of a bridge right now. And in that comfort that they had found in each other and in that much better feeling place that they had established, all of a sudden the police enter. It's all chaotic and fast, and Johnny's taken away to the hospital. Mm-hmm. And Neil went to work.
And then we pick it up in part 2. We start this episode with a question that I've often wondered about, but never had the opportunity or permission to ask. As you can tell, I was a little nervous about it. Were you, oh, God, I don't know how to ask it.
No, it's okay.
I can't even come up with the words.
No,
but were you like regretful that he had changed your mind after you ended back up in that situation that you found so unacceptable?
No, it's a really good question. I think initially, because it was distressing, the way that, not to blame the police, but really felt very angry for a few hours. I was like, actually, things have got worse. Eventually, I was taken back to the hospital that I ran away from. But I felt different. I felt, I think I had some hope. I think just from talking to this guy, I had some hope that there was some light out there. The hospital hadn't changed. Everyone around me was still really unwell and that hadn't changed. But something in me had changed.
But because this is a real story of a real human's mental health crisis, that change wasn't a cure or a quick fix, but it was a turning point.
I'm not going to lie. The incident on the bridge, it changed things for me. It gave me hope, but it still took. I'm going to say it took most of my mid-20s to really come to terms with, my illness and really get help for it. And the trouble was, I didn't want to accept it. I stopped taking my medication, and that was a big problem. I stopped taking my meds, and I became unwell again. In my mid-20s, that's when things changed, and there was actually something that happened. There was an incident that happened that changed everything.
Now, for a podcast created to promote healthy, healing conversations about mental health, Johnny and Neil's story is an embarrassment of riches. Johnny's about to tell us about another conversation, more honest, caring sharing, that brought him to a new level of recovery and healing. This was when a close friend of his suffered a heart attack.
I went to see him and we sat down and we talked for ages. He talked to me about, everything he'd gone through. He sat there and he talked to me with this honesty and this frankness and this openness. And I said to myself, why can't I do this? Mm-hmm. Why can he talk so confidently and openly and not be embarrassed? And it really bothered me. It really bothered me that he could and I couldn't. And so what I did is I made a little video on my phone. I made a video and I put it on YouTube under a different name. It was amazing. I put it out there and I got all these comments from people. Basically, I realized I'm not alone, and I think that was a big thing for me. Talking and accepting, and actually, I actually asked for help and said I do need therapy, and engaging with therapy, and eventually taking meds as well. I think I finally got back on track, and when I really got back on track, that's when I decided to launch the campaign to find this guy.
It was 6 years later, and a distant memory from that day, and completely by surprise, my fiance calls me up because she was one of the only people that I spoke to about that conversation. And she was like, oh my God, Neil, I think the guy that you spoke to on the bridge all those years ago is looking for you. So I was like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? And so there was a campaign out, and I had absolutely no idea that this campaign was like viral, like on Twitter, on Facebook, on social media. It was trending around the world, but I hadn't seen it. I hadn't seen it. It was called the FindMike campaign. So it was hashtag FindMike. So he thought my name was Mike, which wasn't obviously the best start to the campaign. But I don't think that would have made a difference if he'd have called it Find Neil, because I never spoke to anybody about the conversation, really. So nobody apart from my family would have been able to, connect the dots.
But an amazing thing happened. A number of other people did connect the dots in a way that sort of connects us all.
Actually, quite a few people came forward in the Find Mike campaign who genuinely thought it was them.
38 people came forward saying, I think I might have been the one that helped you on the bridge, which was incredible. We just thought that one person, this one stranger that helped me would come forwards, but 38 people.
So 38 other men had helped a stranger who was also a male on that bridge and had never acknowledged it. Wow.
Yeah.
And then there would be women involved in some of the others, you'd hope. So that's amazing.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing? I still can't believe it to this day. We call them all these silent heroes. They're these silent heroes like Neil that helped someone in distress and then just went on their way. And I just think that's amazing. So heartwarming.
And we know through that campaign that a lot of people in London have stopped somebody jumping off a bridge and then gone about their day and just got on with it. It was just interesting that I got to know how my story ended.
Just what he did that day was just extraordinary, and not just for me, but my family as well. Actually, my family and my friends. They also had a huge debt to pay this man.
And now all of us, by the way, everyone you're helping. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you.
And the impact on my life from that conversation has also been, I would say, as equally profound as Johnny has found it as well. So now we're on this journey together, a journey that's led me to this podcast, Giving Voice to Depression, because that's what I do. I feel so passionately about it now, and I've met so many people who have struggled and don't need to struggle, because half the battle is being able to be open and talk. But unfortunately, there's so much stigma. People take their lives. So we're just trying to do our part to stop that happening.
Given the fact that you had never before had a conversation about mental health and certainly were not trained to do so, what enabled you or inspired you to stop and put yourself in that position to help Johnny?
Because I've thought about it a lot, and I think I had a lot of positive role models in my life. And even though we didn't talk about mental health growing up, I was very much encouraged to just kind of do what felt right, regardless of what people thought. We've all got somewhere to be, and we're all trading off a sacrifice, aren't we? Like, if I help this person, I'm going to be late, or I'm going to, lose a bit more money, or something like that. But it feels nice. Sometimes it's just nice just to make a sacrifice. I don't know. It's a nice feeling, and I think we should do it more often. I try to, but when somebody is in a real crisis point that they might actually do something dangerous, you don't have to get involved. You don't have to walk up to them, but you can do something. You can call the police, or you can hang around and make sure they're safe, or you could ask somebody else to come and help you go and speak to them. You don't have to tackle it alone. So there's always something you can do.
Don't kind of expect anyone to stop, because it's a big city, and you see people all the time that are unfortunately maybe unwell, or who are in crisis, and people sort of become immune to it, sadly. I was incredibly lucky to find in the middle of London, on this bridge, this incredibly compassionate and kind and patient stranger.
Just sharing your troubles and your vulnerabilities with somebody can be so profound, in just knowing that you're not alone and you're not the only person out there going through this. Because I think so many people think that they whatever they're experiencing, it's their own problem. Nobody else could be thinking what they're thinking, and that's just not the case.
I'm so glad you made yourself a friend that day, and that he's around to enjoy your good heart, and that he was able to recover.
Well, me too, because now he's like my best friend, and, I know his family really well, and he knows my family. He'll be babysitting my children, you know what I mean?
Oh, I just love it.
Incredible.
I just love it. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Neil and Johnny now work together as mental health and hope advocates, truly making a difference in the world. Mm-hmm. And it all started when one human heard another human's cry for help and answered.
It really, it is an astonishingly touching story. There are times I get shivers. There are times I want to cry. There are times I'm so proud of humans. I mean, it really impacted me. There are so many amazing lessons in Neil and Johnny's story that it's hard to end these episodes, but there was one more thing I wanted to share before signing off. It's just the concept of a hero and whether or not you save someone's life. And I presented the question to Johnny.
Yeah, I think people save their own lives. I mean, people, they do. They it takes such courage. It takes such courage to. Do you know? I'm saying that because Neil says that about that whole situation. He says, Johnny, you did it yourself, and so now
I get it.
Kind of, yeah, because it does. I could have easily. It kind of was for me. I could have easily just taken that step forwards and into the river. But I guess no. It was something in me. It was some courage and determination in me. Clicked into place, and I said, no, I'm going to give it another chance. And it's only you can do that yourself. So yeah, people say themselves, but I think you give them hope. You give them hope, and I think that's we always talk about hope. Myself and Neil, we talk about hope, and hope is. So underestimated. The hope that you can give people, it really is underestimated, I think.
Wow, hope is so underestimated.
Isn't it beautiful? Yeah, maybe we don't even go into it trying to save someone if we're in that situation. Maybe we go into it just genuinely trying to give them some hope. And then, as he said, the choice at that point is theirs. Well, thank you to both Johnny and Neil for sharing their incredible story with us. And they're just starting to come to the U.S. and tell it. In fact, they were in New York this week, and that's the first time they've been here. So hopefully we will help them find an audience for their story here.
Great. We hope that our podcasts bring about a little more understanding or help people articulate their experience of depression a little more. And thanks to each and every person who's digging deep and finding the words and finding the courage to give voice to depression.
And you can find our podcasts on our website, givingvoicetodepression.com, as well as on iTunes, where we hope you will subscribe, rate, and respectfully comment.
And please remember, if you're hurting, speak up. If someone else is hurting, listen up.